So the last thing I want to look at is the ugly side of IT, or things that I wish would change. The very first thing on my list is those entry level struggles. So for most folks, getting your first job is the hardest step. For many entry level roles, a lot of times we see them now where it's an entry level role, but they want 4 years of experience. A lot of times it ain't making sense. Like make it make sense. Like, Sway, you ain't got the answer, Sway. This is what you see. Those entry level roles a lot of times doesn't seem like they are very entry level. So this is something that was the case when I was coming around, when I was trying to get a job. This was something that back then, and like I said, the industry still haven't caught up to where I don't think they're putting out truly entry level roles. So this is something that, it needs to change in my eyes. Like I said, for most folks, that getting that first job is always the hardest. For me, it took roughly 3 years. The reason I say 3 years because I clearly remember my CCNA was about to expire a couple of months after I got hired. So once I got that CCNA the first time, I never renewed it. So it had to be roughly about 3 years before I landed my first IT role. Now, before then, I had some technical support, but it didn't last long because it was in a call center. But basically, I consider my first role was when I got on at the hospital, which was where I was then in the IT industry, in the IT department at that hospital. So, but like I said, one of the things I would like to see change is entry-level roles clearly becoming entry-level roles. And then another thing, since we're on the topic of jobs, I would like to see change is, put the pay range on there. You know what I'm saying? That way, you ain't got to waste your time. If you see the job and you say, oh, that's not within my pay range, you ain't got to worry about applying. But that's another topic for another day. So the next thing that's bad in IT that I would like to see change is a lot of times you may end up in a toxic environment within the IT industry. So you have some workplaces where, you may end up on a team where you're with all veterans and basically they're not trying to help you learn anything. They're basically keeping in all the information. You have some people that they think that, oh, if I tell this person the information or how to resolve this or how to do this, then I'm not going to have a job. So you're going to have those situations to where, you might come across that some point in time in your career. And then also you might come across bad leadership. This could be either your manager or this could be the department in general where, things just ain't up to par. Things don't seem kind of fair. Saying you see this where a lot of times, like I said, most places try to have something in place to prevent this, but you're always going to run across this gatekeeping and things like that. So it's even to the point where as I got more skilled, one of the things I started looking for, especially when I'm going to interviews and things like that, or I'm looking at moving departments, one of the things I look at, and that is high up on my list that decides whether or not I'm going to apply for a job or something like that, is I look at the team. If it's somewhere where I'm already at that particular company and I'm trying to move to another department, I analyze who's on that team. Because one of the things in my mind is, okay, I know that I'm going in this position and I'm entry level in this position. I don't know everything. I'm looking at, is there anyone I can learn from on this team? So I'm looking at that. Now, if it's somewhere where I don't see anyone I can learn from, or everyone on the team I've interacted with has a bad attitude, then basically that's going to cause me to not apply for that particular role. So now if it's a company, an outside company, and I don't know no better yet, I'm going to see if I know anyone that works there. I'm going to look online, look at the reviews. And then basically once I go into the interview, a lot of times one of your interviews, and especially on the IT side of things, one of your interviews may end up being with the team that you will be on. So this is where, as they're questioning me, I'm analyzing them too, buddy. I'm seeing what type of person you are. I'm asking myself, is there someone I can learn from? Because one of the things that I think helped me out in every career move that I went to within the IT industry was every team I got on, there was one person at least. Most of the time, it was multiple people that I could learn from because they knew I was just coming into it. It was always somebody I could tag along with. I did it in desktop. There was someone that was already there who was a veteran. You know what I'm saying? I tagged along with them, seeing how they fixed issues. And that's how I learned the majority of the things I learned. Then when I got in networking, I did the same thing there where, every team member, if they went out working on something, my first couple of months there, I'm shoulder surfing. I'm watching them fix issues. I'm taking notes. That way I started seeing that issue. At first I may hesitate to fix it. Then after a while you fix it and you see that it resolves that issue. Next thing you know, you start getting more confident in yourself. And then, you start fixing issues on your own. And then, like I said, after that, you're off to the races. So that's one of the things I always look at. Is there someone on this team that I can learn from? Then the next thing I wish that could change within the industry is a lot of times we all know as veterans, especially, that most of the time, if you want to get big pay increases, you got to job hop. Where most people, they work in a company maybe 1 to 3 years, 1 to 4 years. And then basically if they're out to get that bag, if they're out to get the most money as possible, a lot of times this person will leave jobs because a lot of times most companies have a bigger salary or whatever to pull talent from outside in rather than promoting talent that's already there up. So this is something I would like to see change because most of the time, you may be at a pretty decent company but things may get tight to where, I need some more pay. Some people may say, if you need more pay, you need to learn how to manage your money. But these days of time, man, you actually need more pay. So with the cost of living, you actually end up needing more pay. So this may be something where, I'm at a good company, but hey, things getting tight. I'm at the home making bologna sandwiches, frying bologna, I'm eating Viennas. I'm doing that. I'm cooking up some sausage meat and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things where you may actually end up just needing more money. So, but in this case, that job you at may not be able to give you a pay raise or anything like that to keep you. So you end up leaving, going somewhere else in order to get that pay raise. And then sometimes you may end up somewhere where you don't really like it, but you like the money. So like I said, this is something I would like to see change to where IT professionals don't necessarily have to keep job hopping in order to get a decent income in order to meet the cost of living. And then another thing I would like to see change within the industry is outsourcing and layoffs. So a lot of times companies, especially the larger companies, sometimes they make sudden cuts, to where even, the most talented people end up losing their jobs. This is something that I would like to see change also. Most companies, like I said, you see it all the time pop up every couple of weeks, every couple of months. There's always some company laying off. To me, I have a theory about it. In my mind, I always think that it seems like to me, most companies start laying off when it's time for their earnings. If you look at the stock market or if you follow the stock market, and to me, it always seems like when it's time for that company earnings is about to come up, seems like they start doing layoffs. But this is something I would like to see change. And then some companies, like I say, if they're not doing a layoff, they may start outsourcing all of their positions overseas, which and then causes a mess in itself because you're bringing in someone from overseas that don't really know the people at that particular company, to where the users at that company, they got used to those personalities that's there. You got people that know each other, which in turn makes things flow better to now you bringing in someone overseas who's not going to have that personality. When they come in overseas, the only thing they're looking for is resolve the issue. If it's not an issue they resolve, they tell you quit. They're not going to look at it. They're not going to try to look at it. They're basically going to tell you that's not my issue. But I don't do that. Basically, you leaving the user frustrated, which in turn makes other users frustrated. So it just ends up a bit mess. But this is something I would like to see change within the IT industry.